Finally, Carolina gets to settle in and play a string of home games at the Smith Center. It's about time.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch to get your Wednesday started. It's great to be together. Special shout out to all our Locked On Tar Heels insiders here, the great everydayers, and of course our Locked On Tar Heels Discord as well. Coming up on the show today, we are going to get ready for tonight's NC State game, which is happening, by the way, unless something just crazy goes down. But, you know, all the weather reports, it is going on. We have that. We're going to get the Four Corners preview for this game. We're going to look at bracketology, where Carolina's sitting, the most recent updates with that. Some interesting comments from Coach Davis, from Coach Williams, defending Coach Davis. But first, let's talk here about the NC State game. And as we get into it, I need to tell you, I've done this like 3 times lately. I got to figure out how to not do this. I forgot to give you the answer for Tuesday trivia yesterday. Nobody called me out. It must mean a lot of you are not listening to the end. No, I'm kidding. But I didn't go back around to the Tuesday trivia answer on Tuesday. So let's get to that really quick. The Tuesday trivia question was, which 5 Tar Heels hold the career record for assist to turnover ratio, minimum 400 assists? Let's go from 5 all the way up to number 1. Number 5 on this list, Marcus Page with a career assist to turnover ratio of 2.20. Just above him, current assistant coach Jeff Lebo, 2.21, just edging out Marcus. I'm going to skip number 3 because that's the one I told you probably aren't going to be able to know. Number 2 on this list is Ty Lawson, 2.78. And then in the number 1 slot, the only Tar Heel ever to have an assist to turnover ratio at 3 or above is Butter, Kendall Marshall. As you would probably guess, 3.01. Now, the guy that's in 3rd place is not somebody you think of as a point guard, because he's not. It's Theo Pinson. Theo. Career assisted turnover ratio of 2.24. Way to go, Theo. Way to wedge yourself. I mean, this is like just classic Carolina point guards. Kendall Marshall, Ty Lawson, Jeff Lebo, Marcus Page, and Theo, right? Like edging out people like Ed Cota, not on this list. Ray Felton, not on this list. It's bonkers. Way to go. Okay, now, Carolina has played 5 of their last 7 games away from the Smith Center. It feels like it's been a whole season of that between all the neutral site games in non-con, the away game at Kansas, the away game at Hawaii. And now, you know, it just feels like Carolina has been on the road a bunch lately here as well. And that's true. 5 out of the last 7 have been on the road. The good news about that is that Carolina, who now has 6 remaining ACC games, gets 4 of the final 6 in the Smith Center. Those home games are going to be this game tonight against NC State, against Virginia on Saturday, against Miami next Saturday, and then against Duke the Saturday after that. That's funny. I hadn't put together that it was all those Saturdays. And then the 2 in between games on the road, there's the game at Florida State and then at Virginia Tech, the last midweek game of the regular season. So got to go take care of both of those games, got to win these home games. And man, if you take care of that, a big opportunity against Duke to wrap the regular season. But before all that, that's the sound of backing up. Got to take care of NC State tonight. So that's where it starts. Let me go back and remind us of what happened the last time these 2 teams played. Carolina won a tight game, 63-61, courtesy of that Jalen Washington bucket off of the kind of crazy Elliot Cadeau pass, and then the J-Wash block to end the game. No Wolfpack players fouled him, and that's ball game 63-61. It was a tight first half. Carolina pushed out to a 7-point lead. NC State had it to 6 at the half. And this is where our blood's going to start boiling. Carolina held a 9-point lead with 5.5 minutes to go in this game. From that point, Elliot Cadeau committed a foul. They hit both free throws. That's down to 7. Elliot Cadeau turnover, fast break layup, down to 5. Elliot Cadeau turnover turns into some State free throws, down to 3. After that, RJ hit a layup to push it back to 5. Couple UNC misses, a couple other buckets from Marcus Hill, and suddenly NC State is up 1 with like 2 and change to go. And that changed, boom, like this in a hurry. From a 9-point Carolina lead, flipped into a State 1-point lead. It was like a 12-2 run in a matter of about 3.5 minutes. And those are the kind of bugaboos that Carolina has fallen prey to this year. And so we've got to find a way to stay away from that exact thing tonight. In that game, Ian Jackson was on his heater, 21 points, 5 of 8 from 3 as part of that. Remember that J-Wash, it wasn't just that closing. He had a really, really good game, a double-double, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks credited to J-Wash in that game. Something to keep in mind, though, is that was just Seth Trimble's second game back. And so he was really finding his way back in, still hasn't really found his 3-point shot again since coming back. That's been an unfortunate part about the back end of that injury. And so there is that. In that first game, Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, one of their big men, missed. That is part of the equation of this time is Carolina, and he's not the starter, that's Middlebrooks, but still Carolina's going to have to contend with that. And then the big bugaboo for Carolina was trying to find a way to guard Marcus Hill, who they had really no answers for. 20 points, 9 rebounds, just scored a ton, particularly in the second half, especially down the stretch there. So that's just a callback to the last game, what happened. As for tonight, Carolina hosting State in the Smith Center, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's on ESPN. Carolina is favored at FanDuel by 9.5. That feels like a big spread given what Carolina has been this year, but that's what it should be because NC State is not good. They're just not. I'll explain that in just a second. KenPom has the line even bigger. Carolina favored there by 12 points. NC State comes into this game 124th in the net. How is NC State that bad? So this is a quad 3 game for the Tar Heels. Right now, NC State is 112th at KenPom. Their offense is 152nd. Their defense 103rd. What has NC State done since playing Carolina last time? Well, that's a good question, and I'm so glad you asked it. They had, coming into the game last time these two teams played, State had just beaten Notre Dame. It's like, all right, NC State maybe found something, got to figure that out. Well, Carolina beats them, and that is the first in a streak of 9 straight games that the Wolfpack lost before finally breaking that and winning at home on Saturday against Boston College. So a Notre Dame win, a Boston College win, 9 losses sandwiched in between, and Carolina needs to put them back on a losing streak. Actually, they, put them back on a losing streak starting tonight. I mean, NC State, 9 losses straight? Yo, do you realize, there are 18 teams in the ACC? Only 15 of them are making the conference tournament. And NC State is in real damage of being one of those teams left out. That's where we're at. On Monday's Coach's Call, Coach Davis was asked by our guy Michael Coe about Michael Coe said, how has NC State evolved since the first matchup, and how are things different, and what are the matchups going to be? Coach Davis says, quote, "They're a really talented group. The first thing that jumps out is defensively, their athleticism and pressure. In our first matchup, our turnovers and our 12 turnovers, by the way, and our shot selection was not very good at all, especially in transition. They made us run our offense real far out. We've got to do a better job taking care of the basketball, got to do a better job at our shot selection, not letting their pressure defensively dictate and decide our pace and how efficient we are on the offensive end. It's a team that can score at all 3 levels. You just know when you play NC State, whether it's in Raleigh or here in Chapel Hill, both teams are going to be playing at a high level, and it'll be a competitive and fun game to play in." So the most important thing you heard in there from Coach Davis didn't necessarily talk about the matchups like he was asked about, but did talk about how State's defensive pressure really caused problems for Carolina. And it was almost like Carolina was allowing State to be the bully and dictate the terms of engagement in this thing, taking the shots that State wanted instead of taking care of the ball, and B, being aggressive and getting into the offensive sets that Carolina needed to run. So that's something to watch for, and obviously something that the Tar Heels will have been working on leading up to this game. So keep your eye on that as you watch Carolina on the offensive side of the floor tonight. Are they getting into what they want to do? Are we taking care of the ball? That's a big thing, right? Are we able to get into the sets we want to run or the actions we want to run? Are we allowing NC State's pressure to dictate that, or are we finding ways to counter it, right? It's just like in football. If they're just all aggressive, run a screen, right? Like, what is the basketball equivalent of that? And then make it happen. That's what you're looking for from Carolina. Don't let that play out again. Well, we want to get to more things to look for in this game with our Four Corners preview. And one of the things I'm wondering, are we going to see more of this bigger lineup for the Tar Heels that we saw quite often on Saturday? We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about TurboTax, Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points to give you 100% accuracy on your return. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress. How cool is that? And you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you just go about your day, whatever it is that you're doing. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. It's time for our Four Corners preview. Here's where we're starting. Number one, Carolina has done the thing that a lot of basketball teams typically do this time of year, where the closer you get to the end of the year, you really pare it down to an 8-man rotation, because I'm fond of saying that in college basketball, you need a group of 8. Who are your 8 dudes, and really lean heavily on them? Yes, you're going to sprinkle in some others here and there. You know, we'll see a little Ty Clodd. We'll see a little James Brown occasionally. But for the most part, Carolina has their 8 guys, and they're going to lean on that. I expect to see that again. But the question is, what kind of starting lineup are we going to see? And are we going to see more utilization of kind of the bigger lineup that we're looking at? Because Coach Davis has talked about, both post-game after the game on Saturday and in the ACC coaches call we were just talking about, referencing how having Jalen Withers in the starting lineup the last couple games has given Carolina some more size to be able to do things that they need to do, to be able to rebound more capably, to be able to, with Jalen Withers specifically, his athleticism and being able to get up and down and do some things offensively as well. Coach Davis talked about how what a big thing that is. Now, the last time that the Tar Heels played NC State, the starting lineup was Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, and Jalen Washington. So it was when both freshmen were in the starting lineup at that point. Seth, as I said earlier, was just in his second game back from injury. So he, Van Allen Lubin, and Jalen Withers, all 3 played off the bench. That was it. Carolina used, even that earlier, used just the 8-man rotation. Now, what I'm expecting tonight, if I'm being honest, is the same starters Carolina has used the last 2 games. So that would be, Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, Seth, Jalen Withers, and Van Allen Lubin. That was the starting 5 we saw against both Clemson last Monday and then against Syracuse up at the Dome on Saturday. And then lean heavily on those 5 plus Ian, Drake, and Jay Wash off the bench. Now, given that Ian kind of was Ian again on Saturday, like maybe we see him jump back into the starting lineup. But I expect, just because of the nature of the rivalry game and leaning into the moment and everything that carries with it, I expect that we'll continue to see that Elliot, RJ, Seth, Jay Witt, Val starting lineup. But I fully expect that pretty quickly into this game and quite throughout it, that Carolina will utilize more of the bigger lineup, whether that's Jalen Withers at the 4, but also not just that, but I talked about this on our show yesterday. Just the Elliot RJ backcourt along with Seth is just so small. So the more you can get to either Elliot with like maybe Ian at the 2 or Seth at the 2 and Ian at the 3 and some combination of that, maybe Drake Powell at the 3, his more natural position, Jay Witt and Van Allen or Jay Wash at the 5, or, again, as we talked about yesterday, with some of Elliot's struggles lately, with all his turnovers, with the foul trouble that he's suffered. Yes, his shooting numbers are okay and good. At some extent, they're better than RJ's season long. But teams just don't fear Elliot at all. And he's not necessarily a willing shot maker, right? Or shot taker, like won't step in and do that. And so it's like, if you've got RJ at the 1 with like Ian or Seth at the 2, Drake at the 3, or Ian at the 3, something like that, just gives Carolina more height, more size, and that could be good against this NC State squad. And so I'm really watching to see what all that looks like. Number 2 in the Four Corners preview, speaking of Ian Jackson, we need the return of Ian Jackson to carry on over into this game, right? It had been 7 games. In the last 7 games, Ian had been in double digits just one time, including a nothing, a 0, a zilch, a nada, a nothing burger, right? And then returns to form with 23 points the last game against Syracuse. A lot of that was hit that first shot right out of the gate, literally his first touch, pump fake, sidestep 3 buckets. And so whether it's getting him going with, drawing up a play, getting him to the rim, or just Coach Davis sitting him down, putting his hands on his shoulders and saying, Ian, buddy, I need you. Get to the rim, finish, get to the rim, draw attention, and dump off for Van Allen Lubin or something like that, right? Like whatever it is, Carolina has to get Ian Jackson going early and often in this game. And then again, as we talked about for the Syracuse game, if you can have both Ian and RJ going well, whether that's RJ doing what he did Saturday, 6 helpers and just 1 turnover, or Ian scoring and RJ scoring a bunch, like, man, if that dynamic duo could get going, woo, baby, that would be phenomenal. But I'm watching to see, can Ian show that Saturday was not just a one-off and that he is back offensively? Man, that would be such a big help tonight in this game. Thirdly, in our Four Corners preview, while that's what I'm hoping for Ian Jackson, I'm also hoping it's true for Jalen Withers, who had by points the best game of his Carolina career and one off his career high, whether at Carolina or at Vandy or Notre Dame, right? Like that's what Saturday was for Van Allen Lubin. Yes, 1 or 2 mental mistakes, that turnover as he was trying to outlet to Elliot, and then a time he just got turned around and messed up on an inbounds play and let Syracuse score a pretty easy bucket there. Those aside, so good from Jalen Withers. That's the version of him we need to see, even if he's not hitting threes, right? Like I want him to take that in rhythm 3, right? When it's there and it makes sense. But I want to see him slashing. I want to see offensive rebounds and putbacks. I want to see a lot of rebounds, those kind of things. I don't want to see a lot of dribbling. I don't want to see a lot of dribbling into playmaking. I'll take playmaking if it's like I receive a pass, maybe 1 dribble gone or something like that. Or, we talked about NC State's pressure defense, 1 dribble, pump fake, somebody's back cutting, hit that bounce pass, right? Like that kind of thing. Great with that. How does Jalen Withers follow up Saturday? That and Ian both critical watching for tonight in this game. And then finally, 4th thing in our Four Corners preview, Carolina's got to play a full 40 minutes of defense. Yes, NC State only scored 61 points in the game the first time. But when I break it down into the 2 halves, the Tar Heels held NC State to just 20 points in the first half of that game, meaning that they scored 41 in the second half. Let's go back to the first half numbers, where Carolina did wonderfully the first time around, held State in the first half to just 9 of 40 shooting. That's 22.5%, just 1 of 12 from 3, 8.3%, and 100% from the free throw line, but they only attempted 1 of them and again scored only 20 points. The problem was Carolina didn't necessarily have a whole bunch of points themselves. If I remember correctly, it was 26. So it's not like Carolina set the world on fire, but they were still up 6. So great first half of defense from Carolina, but they gotta do better in the second half, where it was like either they forgot how to defend or, things changed and NC State got hot. Second half, More of the same from 3, but much fewer attempts. NC State was 2 of 7, but they were 60% from the field. They hit 15 of their 25 shots in totality. And if you take the 2 out of 7 from 3 away from it, where they were abysmal, that means they were 13 of 18 from 2. What? That's not good. Carolina has to do better on that. And a lot of that is Marcus Hill, right? Got to do better on him. Also allowed State to get to the free throw line a lot more, where they were 9 of 11 and scored, as I said, 41 points, more than doubling their point output from the first half. So I'm not saying Carolina has to hold them to 20 points every half, but if we could get 25 to 30 in every half, that's what you're looking for. I want a balanced and even defense throughout this game from Carolina. That's what we're looking for. Full 40 minutes of walling up and doing the defensive things you need. Now, again, as I said, FanDuel has this game, Carolina minus 9.5. That number feels steep given Carolina's inability this season to close teams out. I do think the Tar Heels win this game. And while I would love for it to be a 15, 20, 80-point blowout, whatever it is, I'm going to say Carolina doesn't cover that 9.5. Give me the Tar Heels by 8 at home in this game. And I hope I'm reverse jinxing them and it's Carolina by 90. That's what we're looking for. Now, unfortunately, because of the way this season has gone, Carolina, yes, needs to worry about themselves and winning each one of these games, but they also have to worry about what the teams around them are doing. What's the latest in bracketology? I'll let you know that. Plus, Coach Williams coming to HD's defense. Yes, we'll get to that in just a second. All right, bubble update, because unfortunately Carolina they don't necessarily control their own destiny. Well, they do in this way. I mean, you go win the ACC tournament, you're good to go, right? You win all these regular season games and knock off Duke, you're good to go. So from that standpoint, yes. But the Tar Heels really do need other teams to lose around them. But for now, just got to focus, if we're Carolina, on winning basketball games, being consistent, winning this game tonight against NC State. Move on. Winning against Virginia on Saturday. It's like one step at a time with this thing. Another thing I'd also like to see happen that would be extremely helpful is for Stanford to be very, very, very good. Stanford is Carolina's lone loss outside of quad 1. For a while, it was quad 2, and that's not so bad, but now Stanford has not been as good, and it's a quad 3 loss. They're 84th in the net. You got to be with Carolina playing them at home. It needs to be top 75 for Stanford to be a quad 2 game. Better yet, Carolina shouldn't have lost that game, but I digress. The other one that really rankles me is Wake Forest, because that would have been a quad 1 win. And then we get off this whole conversation about only having one quad 1 win, teams not making it without 2 quad 1 wins. And the other thing is Wake is just ahead of Carolina in bracketology. So if Carolina wins that game at Lawrence Stoll, I would imagine things were flip-flopped right now on the bubble. And that is infuriating to me. But we can't go back and change the past. We can only press on. So Lunardi's bubble. He puts out new things every Tuesday right now, and it's going to start getting more regular here very soon. There are some teams that are not directly on the bubble. They're just ahead of it, but they're not locks. They're not perfectly in position. So here's a couple teams that are just north of the bubble in the 8, 9, 10 range. On the 8 line is Gonzaga, Creighton, Oregon, and UConn. UConn, by the way, won on Tuesday night against Villanova, knocking them further off the bubble. They already weren't in good place. I was kind of hoping I'd put in my bubble cheering guide for Villanova to win that game to just keep knocking UConn down, but whatever. It's fine either way there. Now, most of those teams on the 8 line, like Gonzaga, probably safe. Creighton, been playing really good, but they're an 8 seed, and that's not locked. Right. Number 9 seeds, Utah State, Baylor, Ohio State, similar there. And then Nebraska 10. None of them were in action Tuesday or tonight. And now we get to the official bubble as far as Lunardi goes. Last 4 buys. Remember, these are the teams that are fully in the 64 team bracket. Don't have to go to Dayton. As of now, that is Texas, West Virginia, BYU, who won on Tuesday. Oh my word, did they win on Tuesday. Obliterating Kansas. And then Vandy is the last team in that. Last four in, these would be the teams that if it sat this way would go to Dayton if the season ended today. San Diego State, who won on Tuesday night. Oklahoma, who lost. Oklahoma, y'all, they're not going to the tournament. Yeah, I know their last four in. They're going to keep sliding. Just know that. Arkansas, and then Wake Forest. We talked about Wake. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. Next four out. First four out, these would be the teams that just miss out on the tournament. Right now, that's VCU, University of Georgia, SMU, who Carolina beat, and then Carolina. So Carolina in that first four out as of right now. So that's why, you see how close it is. If you move up 4 spots, you're in. So you just keep stacking wins, let other teams lose. And then next four out is Indiana, Xavier, who won on Tuesday night, Kansas State, and then UC Irvine. Even further out, so this would be like not really close, like 9, 10, 11, 12. Cincinnati, San Francisco, Boise State, and Pitt. Pitt won on Wednesday night, by the way. So what I want to give you is the Wednesday night bubble cheering guide. Actually, you know what? I said Nebraska wasn't playing Wednesday night. They are. I said that. So first off, the biggest bubble cheering guide is Carolina's got to win, right? Like if you don't win your games, who cares what these other teams do? So got to take care of business. Ideally, seriously, win by 20 or 30 points. Just make a statement for the committee and for all the computers. And then outside of that, there are 8 of these teams that I've just mentioned that are in action tonight. So, and I'll put this all out on social media, by the way, so you can go follow that way. I'll put it in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. I'll send it to the insiders, all that great stuff. UMass at VCU. VCU is the bubble team just ahead of Carolina. We need to cheer for the Minutemen. Nebraska at Penn State. Nebraska is the bubble team. We're cheering for Penn State. Vandy at Kentucky. Hopefully, Kentucky takes care of work there in Rupp. We don't often say that, but when a bubble team's on the line, we are going to say it. Cincinnati at West Virginia. West Virginia is the bubble team. Come on, Wes Miller. Do your alma mater a solid, please. SMU at Notre Dame. Fighting Irish. We're cheering for you tonight. Arkansas at Auburn. Number 1 team in the nation should knock off John Calipari's Hogs, but we'll see what happens there. We're cheering for Auburn. Gonzaga at Washington State. Again, Gonzaga feels very safe, but they could fall if they don't win a bunch of games. So cheer for Wazoo. And then finally, New Mexico at Boise State. The Lobos are the number 1 team in the Mountain West Conference and have a great shot to go to Boise and knock off the Broncos, and that's what we're cheering for. Again, all of that you don't have to remember. You can find it on my social media, Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and places like that. Now, the other thing, did you guys hear these comments from Coach Williams defending Coach Davis on the Zach Gelb show? Zach Gelb said there's a lot of conversation about someone you know very well in Hubert Davis, and if he's still the right guy for the job. What do you say to people that are questioning that right now? Here's what Coach Williams had to say. He has more passion and more concern in his little finger than all of those people put together. And here's the big, yes, he's the right person for the job. Just makes me cringe. I mean, why do people talk? We've had some tough moments this year. There's no question about that, but the season's not over. I think we're going to make a run here, and I would love for it to turn around 180 degrees so I could look at all those other suckers and tell them to shut up. So there's a couple things here I just want to quickly unpack from Coach Williams. Number 1, he is continuing to defend Coach Davis as the right person for the job. Whether you believe that or not, whether I believe that or not, Roy Williams says he is. Now, I think what a lot of people would debate with that is that just because he was your pick, or do you truly honestly believe that he is still the right man for this job in this time and age? I have been both a Hubert Davis defender, so that's what I would believe. And he's not going anywhere next year. Let's all wrap our brains around that, love it or hate it or indifferent. That's the case, unless things just absolutely fall apart, which I don't think they're going to do given the schedule ahead. And Coach Williams is even in on that, saying, hey, look, you guys, the season's not over. You win these games, you beat Duke, you do well in the ACC tournament, you're in. You are in. Even if you don't beat Duke, you could still be in, right? And so he's saying, look, this is crazy. I've been a coach. I know it. I get it. I understand. But come on, what are we doing here, right? And so was really interesting from Coach Williams to come out and do that. The fact that he even felt kind of the need to as part of this, which I know he's directly asked about it, so he's going to, but just really interesting. A couple other quick updates on some other teams. In case you hadn't seen the AP poll that came out on Monday, the women's basketball team is up to number 9 in the nation right now, following that the beating of NC State, who was number 10 at the time, on Sunday in Carmichael. First time in the top 10 for the ladies since December 19th of 2022. That poll, about 2 years and change ago. And then prior to that, you got to go all the way back to 2015 to find them in the top 10. So really good stuff there. As of yet, no updates officially on Alyssa Utsby or her status. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't really hear anything until Thursday, and we'll see then before their game. Baseball had their 4th game of the season yesterday against K-State. The schedule had been jiggered around a little bit. Initially supposed to play them today, but moved it up to Tuesday. Carolina wins against the Wildcats 12-9. Folger Boaz started this game. So good to see that happening. Carolina used a 5-run 7th inning to take a 10-6 lead and then hold on. Weirdly, Carolina is always like a power mashing lots of home runs team. 4 games in, none. 0 home runs for the Diamond Heels. And Scott Forbes is like, hey, if we keep stringing wins together and doing the work defensively, I'm good with it, right? But it's just odd that the power-hungry Tar Heels haven't left the yard yet. All right, guys, great game tonight. Can we please, Tar Heels, I beg you, demolish NC State. Get a big lead, don't give it up, and keep building it. I beg you to make this a stress-free, roll-aids-free, heartburn-free Wednesday night for all of us. I thank you in advance. If you've not subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on audio and video, make sure you go ahead and do that right now. Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification so that when we go live tonight after the game, you'll get notified that that's happening. You can just click on that notification and tap right in. Also, when you subscribe, you're helping us to get to our 10-3 goal, 10,000 subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We're coming up on it, man. We got like 10 days left. We need your help in that. If you have not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Insider program yet, it's a great way to go next level with the show and have direct access to me and all of my charts and data and stuff as well. That link's in the show notes, as is the link for Locked On Tar Heels Discord. We'd love to see you there as well, chatting Tar Heels all the time. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tonight after the game, but until then, peace.